Ambassador Lyra pressed her delicate four-fingered hand against the viewport, watching her world crumble. The gentle dawn carried 5,000 Chitauri souls toward what should have been a new beginning. Instead, 12 Cravish warships surrounded them like predators circling wounded prey. Her species had evolved on peaceful Chitter, a world of gentle rains and endless gardens. The Chitauri grew tall and thin, their bodies adapted for climbing through forest canopies, not for fighting. Their ship reflected this nature, built for comfort and efficiency, carrying colonists who knew only peace. No weapons, no soldiers, just families seeking a fresh start among the stars. The Cravish cared nothing for peace. Their ships bore scars from countless raids, hulls painted with the symbols of conquered worlds. Lyra had studied the reports. The Cravish took what they wanted, selling survivors into slavery across the darker corners of the galaxy. They grew strong on a high-gravity world that forged them into living tanks, each warrior standing 3 times her height with muscles like bundled steel cables. "Ambassador, their boarding craft are launching," Communications Officer Trell's voice cracked with terror. His antennae lay flat against his head, a sign of absolute fear among their kind. Lyra watched 12 assault pods detach from the Cravish flagship. Their shields were failing. The hull would breach in minutes. She thought of the children in the lower decks, the families huddled together, all those who trusted the Galactic Council's promise of safe passage through neutral space. That promise meant nothing now. "Send the distress call on all frequencies," Lyra ordered, keeping her voice steady despite the trembling in her limbs. "The Council channels aren't responding," Trell said, his fingers dancing across his console. "They say we're in disputed territory. They say it would take 3 days to organize a response." 3 days, they had perhaps 3 hours. "Then use the old frequencies," Lyra said quietly. Trell's antennae shot upright in surprise. "Ambassador, nobody monitors those anymore. The Council decommissioned them a decade ago. They said modern species had better systems." "Not everyone abandoned them." Lyra moved to his station, entering an override code. "There's one species that still listens to the old channels. They say it's because someone might need help." She pulled up the ancient distress frequency, the one her grandfather had told her about from his days as a colony scout. Back then, the galaxy was wilder, and species looked after each other. Before the Council decided efficiency mattered more than compassion. "Transmit on frequency 779. Emergency band, maximum power." The message went out into the void, a desperate plea cast into an ocean of stars. Most species would never hear it. Their modern systems filtered out the old frequencies as noise, as obsolete clutter from a more primitive time. But Lyra remembered the stories. Stories about a species that clawed its way up from a nightmare world, a planet so hostile that survival itself seemed impossible. A species that refused to leave anyone behind because they knew what it meant to fight alone against the darkness. The first Cravish boarding pod struck their hull with a thunderous crash. Metal screamed. Atmosphere began venting from the breach point. Somewhere below, Chitauri children were crying. "Seal the lower decks," Lyra commanded. "Get everyone into the core sections." "Ambassador, look," Trell pointed at his sensor display. Jump signatures, multiple contacts appearing at the system's edge, not the slow, careful arrivals of Council ships. These were hard combat jumps, the kind that tore through space-time with brutal efficiency. 5 ships materialized from the impossible distances between stars. They moved wrong, accelerating at speeds that should liquefy any organic crew. Their hulls looked scarred and functional, built for purpose rather than beauty. The lead vessel opened a channel. The face that appeared made Lyra's breath catch. Forward-facing eyes, predator eyes, a species that evolved hunting, not hiding. Dense bone structure visible even through skin. Muscle mass that spoke of high gravity and constant struggle. "This is Commander Owen Blake of the Earth Defense Force vessel Steadfast. We received your distress call. Hold position. We're coming to help." Human, they were human. The Cravish commander's voice cut across the channel, harsh and mocking. Withdraw, Deathworlders. This doesn't concern your pathetic pack. We outnumber you more than 2-1. Blake's expression didn't change. Lyra had studied human faces, knew their micro-expressions from diplomatic training. What she saw now was the face of a predator choosing whether to warn prey or simply strike. You have 30 seconds to disengage and withdraw, Blake said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. After that, we stop asking nicely. The Cravish commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Your species may survive harsh worlds, but you're still just 5 ships. We are 12. The mathematics are simple. You're thinking about this wrong, Blake replied. His crew moved behind him with synchronized precision, each member focused and calm despite the impossible odds. You're not facing 5 ships. You're facing a species that learned to survive on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We domesticated wolves. We swam with sharks. We made friends with creatures that could tear us apart because we understood something you never learned. Blake leaned forward, and Lyra saw something in those predator eyes that made her understand why the galaxy called them Deathworlders. Not because they brought death, but because death itself had failed to stop them. The pack protects its own, and you just threatened our pack. The human ship surged forward with acceleration that defied physics and sanity both. The Cravish commander learned his first lesson when the human weapons fired. Commander Grask had raided 47 systems, conquered twice that many settlements. His ship, the Blood Render, bore the scars of 100 battles. He knew combat. He knew violence. He thought he knew war. Then human plasma rounds tore through his forward shields like they were made of paper. The difference between intimidation and actual combat became suddenly, violently clear. Cravish ships were built to terrify weaker species into submission. Heavy armor, oversized weapon ports, hull designs meant to inspire fear. They worked beautifully against peaceful traders and unarmed colonists. They meant nothing against a species that considered planetary extinction events routine weather. Tactical Officer Amara Okonkwo coordinated the human assault from the Steadfast's control center. Her hands moved across holographic displays with the kind of casual precision that came from growing up on a world where paying attention meant survival. On Earth, humans tracked predators through dense forests, read subtle changes in weather patterns, processed threats from multiple directions simultaneously. Those same skills translated beautifully to void combat. 2 Cravish ships attempting to flank from Grid 7, she reported calmly. Dmitri, rotate our ventral batteries to compensate. Engineer Dmitri Volkov didn't ask permission. He simply rerouted power through circuits that weren't designed to handle such loads, bypassing safety systems that would make any other species' engineers scream in horror. Human engineering philosophy was simple. If it wasn't actively exploding, you could push harder. The Steadfast twisted through space in a maneuver that produced 8 gravities of force. Inside, the human crew barely noticed. Inertial dampeners helped, but even without them, humans regularly survived forces that would paste most galactic species against their own walls. 3 Cravish ships died in the first exchange. Not damaged, not disabled, completely destroyed. Grask watched his tactical display with growing horror. His remaining ships were trying to return fire, but the humans moved with impossible agility. Every time his weapons officers achieved lock, the human vessels had already shifted position. They fought like their brains processed time differently, like they saw threats before they materialized. They did. Human pattern recognition evolved to track fast-moving prey and faster-moving predators. Their neural architecture processed spatial relationships in ways that gave them split-second advantages. In ship combat, split seconds meant everything. All vessels focus fire on the lead human ship, Grask ordered. Concentrate our. 4 more of his ships vanished from his display, torn apart by coordinated human fire. The remaining 5 scattered, their commanders realizing what Grask refused to accept. They weren't fighting a battle. They were being hunted. Blake watched the Cravish break formation. Some species might have let them run. Humans didn't become apex predators by leaving threats alive behind them. Amara disable their engines but keep them intact. We need prisoners for testimony. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was already prepping her medical bay. She knew what came next. Humans might avoid killing when possible, but that didn't make combat gentle. She checked supplies, organized trauma equipment, prepared for both human and potential Kravish casualties. Her hand stayed steady. Like every human physician, she had trained by treating injuries from Earth's countless dangers: shark bites, snake venom, broken bones from simple falls that would kill frailer species. If you could stabilize someone after they'd been mauled by a bear, you could handle combat trauma. The Kravish made their final mistake when 3 ships surrounded the Gentle Dawn, using the Chitauri vessel as a living shield. "Stand down or we execute the colonists," Grask transmitted, his voice tight with desperation. Blake's response was immediate. "Boarding action, all Marines, hard breach protocol." Dmitri pulled up alongside the Kravish ship holding position nearest the Chitauri vessel. Human Marines assembled in the airlock, sealed into armor that could withstand hard vacuum, extreme temperatures, and direct weapons fire. The armor looked brutally functional because it was. No aesthetics, pure survival technology. The Marines breached the Kravish hull with shaped charges that bypassed shields entirely. They poured through the opening while atmosphere vented around them, moving through conditions that would incapacitate most species within seconds. Inside the Kravish ship, warriors 3 times human size waited with weapons ready. They had mass advantage. They had strength advantage. They had defensive positions. Humans had something else entirely. Marine Sergeant Lisa Hayes took point, her squad moving behind her with practiced efficiency. The first Kravish warrior charged, confident his size would overwhelm her. Lisa sidestepped with reflexes honed by millennia of dodging Earth's megafauna, targeted the joint in his armor with precision born from hunting animals with thick hides, and dropped him with a weapon designed by a species that understood weak points. Humans didn't fight fair. Fair fighting was how you died on a death world. They fought smart, they fought dirty, and they never, ever stopped. The Kravish had evolved to overwhelm through brute force. Humans evolved to bring down creatures twice their size using tools, tactics, and an absolutely terrifying refusal to quit. Pain was information to them, not a stopping point. Injury meant adapting strategy, not surrendering. 3 minutes into the boarding action, the Kravish started surrendering. Grask watched his warriors throw down their weapons, his tactical officers showing signs of panic. The humans weren't even breathing hard. One had taken a plasma burn across her shoulder and kept fighting like it was a minor inconvenience. His communication system crackled. Blake's face appeared, and Grask finally understood what the galaxy meant by Deathworlder. "Your fleet is disabled. Your warriors are surrendering. You have precisely 1 chance to do this peacefully." Blake's voice carried no anger, no emotion, just flat certainty. "Stand down or we go through you to reach the Chitauri. Your choice." Grask looked at his remaining ships, his captured warriors, his completely demolished tactical position. He had started this encounter with overwhelming numerical advantage. Humans had taught him that numbers meant nothing when you were fundamentally outclassed. Dr. Yuki Tanaka moved through the Gentle Dawn's corridors with her medical team, scanning for injuries. The Chitauri ship smelled different from human vessels, filled with the scent of growing things and floral notes. Everything was designed for beings half-human size, forcing Yuki to duck through doorways meant for more graceful frames. She found the first group of Chitauri huddled in a common area, their thin bodies pressed together for comfort. When they saw her approach, several gasped and pulled back. Their large eyes widened with unmistakable fear. Yuki understood. She had seen the videos from First Contact, watched recordings of other species reacting to human appearance. Predator eyes facing forward for depth perception, dense muscle suggesting strength and violence, teeth designed for tearing meat. Everything about human evolution screamed danger to prey species. "I'm Dr. Tanaka," she said softly, kneeling to make herself smaller and less threatening. I'm here to help with medical care. Is anyone injured? An older Chitauri stepped forward, his movements cautious. 3 of our people were hurt when the hull breached. They're in the lower medical bay. Yuki's team followed him through winding corridors. The Chitauri medical facility was beautiful, all soft lighting and gentle curves, designed to promote healing through peaceful aesthetics. Her own medical bay on the Steadfast looked brutal by comparison, built for emergency trauma and rapid intervention. Different worlds, different solutions. The injured Chitauri lay on treatment beds, their breathing shallow. Yuki scanned them quickly, her medical training translating alien physiology into treatment protocols. Fractured limbs from explosive decompression, respiratory stress from oxygen deprivation, nothing her team couldn't handle. We'll need to set these bones, she explained to the Chitauri medical attendant, a female named Sala. Your people's skeletal structure is less dense than ours. The fractures are clean, but they'll need careful stabilization. Sala watched in amazement as Yuki's hands moved with gentle precision, treating beings whose bodies were so different from her own. You're very careful, she said quietly. I thought warriors would be less delicate. We're not warriors, Yuki replied, adjusting a bone fragment with movements as soft as breath. We're people like you. We just come from a world that taught us to be ready for anything. Up on the Gentle Dawn's command deck, Ambassador Lyra was having a similar conversation with Commander Blake. He stood near the viewport, studying the captured Cravish vessels with the calm assessment of someone who had done this before. Your people moved very fast, Lyra said, approaching him carefully. Even knowing he was here to help, her instincts screamed warnings about those predator eyes. The council would have taken days to respond. You arrived in less than an hour. Blake turned to face her, and she noticed he kept his movements slow and predictable. He was deliberately making himself less threatening, she realized, giving her time to adjust to his presence. The old distress frequencies are monitored by automated systems throughout human space, he explained. The moment your call went out, every ship within jump range received notification. We happen to be closest. Why do you still monitor frequencies everyone else abandoned? Blake's expression softened slightly. Because the galaxy got more civilized and decided efficiency mattered more than compassion. The Council runs everything through committees now. Proper channels, authorization protocols, all very organized and very slow. He gestured toward the viewport where the Gentle Dawn floated, still bearing scars from the attack. While they're organizing meetings, people die. Humans decided we'd rather be inefficient and actually save lives. A small voice interrupted them. Are you really from a death world? Lyra turned to see a young Chitauri named Pip standing in the doorway. The child should have been in the shelters with the others, but apparently curiosity had won over fear. Blake knelt down, bringing himself to the child's eye level. The movement was fluid, practiced. He had done this before, Lyra realized, probably with his own children. I'm from Earth, Blake said gently. Some people call it a death world because it's more dangerous than most planets, but I just call it home. Is it scary? Pip asked, taking a tiny step closer. Sometimes we have big predators called lions that hunt in groups, sharks that swim in our oceans with hundreds of teeth, tiny insects that can make you very sick, whether that can destroy whole cities. Blake smiled. But we also have beautiful mountains and oceans that sparkle in the sun. We have music and art and stories. We have families who love each other. He pulled out a small device, showing Pip an image. A human child with Blake's same eyes laughed in the picture, playing in what looked like a garden. That's my daughter, Sophia. She's about your age. She's back on Earth with her mother. Pip stared at the image. She looks happy. She is, because even though Earth can be dangerous, humans learn to make it safe for our families, to protect the people we care about. Blake looked at Pip seriously. That's what we do best. We protect our pack, and when someone calls for help, they become part of that pack. The child reached out slowly, touching Blake's hand. The size difference was dramatic. Pip's delicate fingers barely spanning Blake's palm. But Blake held perfectly still, letting the child explore without fear. "Your hands are very warm," Pip observed. "Humans run hotter than most species. Our world taught us to regulate temperature for lots of different environments." Lyra watched the interaction with growing understanding. These humans, these terrifying Deathworlders with their weapons and their impossible ships, they were also capable of tremendous gentleness. The same hands that had disabled Kravish warships now held a frightened child with infinite care. Ambassador Lyra had spent decades in diplomatic service, had studied dozens of species and their cultures. She had never seen anything quite like this. A species that could switch so completely between fierce protection and tender compassion. Later, as human engineers worked to repair the Gentle Dawn's damaged systems, Lyra found Blake again. "Commander, why did your people develop this way? Other strong species use their power for conquest." Blake considered the question carefully. "Earth taught us that strength without purpose is just violence. We survived because we protected our weak, because we worked together, because we understood that the pack only survives when everyone survives." He looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy spreading before them. "We could have become conquerors. Instead, we chose to become protectors. It's a choice we make every single day." The Galactic Council chamber on Meridian Point Station represented the pinnacle of civilized society. Soaring architecture from a dozen species, environmental controls that kept everyone comfortable, translation systems that made communication seamless. Diplomat Rector Valen of the Ilari presided over the emergency session, his graceful form draped in ceremonial robes that flowed like water. The Ilari had evolved on a world of gentle winds and warm seas. They brought art and philosophy to the galaxy, teaching younger species the value of peaceful coexistence. Valen believed deeply in the Council's mission to prevent the chaos of earlier eras when might made right. Today's session challenged those beliefs. The human incursion into neutral space violated 3 separate protocols, announced Representative Cross of the Korthan species. His species valued logic above all else, their massive computational brains processing data with mechanical precision. They engaged in military action without council authorization. They crossed territorial boundaries without proper clearance. They captured vessels belonging to a recognized, if unsavory, sovereign entity. Across the chamber, Ambassador Lyra stood at the witness platform. She had traveled from the Gentle Dawn specifically for this hearing, leaving her people under human protection while she faced the council that had failed them. "Representative Cross," Lyra said, her voice steady despite her slight frame. "How long did my people's distress call remain unanswered through proper council channels?" Cross consulted his data pad. Initial response protocols required verification of the threat level, authorization of resource allocation, and coordination of appropriate response teams. Total time from distress call to potential deployment would have been 68 hours. "We had 3 hours before complete hull breach," Lyra replied. "You're saying the proper procedure was to let 5,000 civilians die while waiting for authorization." A murmur ran through the council chamber. Valen raised his hand for silence. "Ambassador Lyra, we understand your emotional response to recent trauma. However, protocols exist to prevent escalation. If every species responded to perceived threats with military force, we would return to the chaos of the pre-council era." "Is that what you think happened?" Lyra's antennae rose sharply, a sign of agitation. "Let me show you what actually occurred." She activated the holographic display, showing footage from the Gentle Dawn's external cameras. Council members watched as Kravish ships surrounded the helpless colony vessel, watched the boarding pods launch, watched the hull begin to fail. Then the human ships arrived. The footage showed the battle from the Chitauri perspective. Council members who had never witnessed actual combat shifted uncomfortably as they watched human vessels move with impossible speed and precision. Several gasped when they saw the casual way humans boarded the Kravish ship in hard vacuum. But Lyra wasn't finished. She switched to internal footage from the Gentle Dawn. Dr. Tanaka treating injured Chitauri with gentle hands. Blake kneeling before Pip, showing pictures of his daughter. Human engineers working alongside Chitauri technicians to repair damaged systems, sharing techniques and tools without hesitation. The final clip showed Blake addressing the Gentle Dawn's survivors. "You're safe now. We'll escort you to your destination and make sure this never happens again. That's a promise." Lyra paused the playback. The humans asked for nothing in return. No payment, no treaty obligations, no territorial concessions. They responded to a distress call on a frequency the Council abandoned because it wasn't efficient enough. Representative Cross began to object, but Ambassador Thera of the Nessari species interrupted. The aquatic Nessari rarely spoke in council sessions, preferring to observe and analyze. When Thera did speak, others listened. "How many distress calls have gone unanswered because they came through outdated systems?" Thera's voice bubbled through her translation device. "How many species have died waiting for proper authorization?" Uncomfortable silence filled the chamber. Valen tried to restore order. "The Council's procedures are designed to prevent conflicts from escalating. We must consider the larger implications." "What larger implications?" Lyra's voice rose, her diplomatic composure cracking. "That a species actually honored the old promises, that someone still believes in protecting those who cannot protect themselves." She brought up another display, this one showing statistics. Since humans began monitoring the old distress frequencies, emergency response times in their patrol zones have decreased by 73%. Piracy incidents are down 68%. Civilian casualties from raids have dropped by 81%. The numbers hung in the air, undeniable and damning. "They're not building an empire," Lyra continued. "They're doing the job we were supposed to do, the job we abandoned because it wasn't convenient anymore." Representative Cross stood, his logical mind grasping for structure. "Regardless of outcomes, we cannot simply ignore established procedures. If we allow humans to operate outside council oversight, we set a dangerous precedent." "Then change the procedures," said a new voice. High Ambassador Seln of the Marathi entered the chamber, her crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. As one of the Council's founding members, her species had witnessed the galaxy's evolution from primitive chaos to organized civilization. "I remember when these protocols were established," Seln said, her voice resonating through the chamber. "We created them to prevent strong species from abusing weak ones, to ensure that might did not make right." She gestured toward the frozen image of Blake protecting Chitauri children. "But somewhere along the way, we confused bureaucracy with morality. We made efficiency more important than compassion. We decided that following proper channels mattered more than saving lives." Seln moved to the center of the chamber, her ancient presence commanding absolute attention. The humans did exactly what these protocols were meant to encourage. They protected those who could not protect themselves. They responded to genuine need without consideration for profit or power. They demonstrated the very ideals we claim to represent. She turned to Valen. "I move that we not only recognize human monitoring of distress frequencies, but officially request their assistance in re-establishing emergency response networks throughout Council space. Further, I propose we invite human representatives to join the Council as full members." The chamber erupted in debate. Some species objected on principle. Others saw the wisdom in Seln's words. But Lyra noticed something interesting. Even the skeptics were reviewing the data, studying the evidence, unable to deny the results. The vote took 3 hours. When it concluded, humanity had formal recognition for their emergency response operations. 6 species immediately requested partnership agreements for patrol coverage. Valen approached Lyra after the session ended. "Your testimony was quite effective, Ambassador." "I just told the truth," Lyra replied. "Humans saved my people when no one else would. The galaxy needs to understand what that means." 6 months passed since the Gentle Dawn incident, and the galaxy learned what it meant when humans made promises. The Chitauri colony on New Haven thrived under twin suns, their settlements spreading across fertile valleys that reminded them of home. But now human patrol vessels crossed the system's boundaries every 48 hours, their presence a constant reminder that this world was protected. Ambassador Lyra had transformed her role entirely. She no longer simply represented her people to the Council. Now, she served as the primary liaison between Chitauri settlers and the human defense forces that had become their unexpected guardians. She sat in her office reviewing reports when young Pip entered, now wearing the uniform of the Chitauri Human Exchange Program. The child had grown in confidence over the past months, no longer flinching at the sight of human visitors. "Ambassador, the new human rotation just arrived," Pip announced. "They brought supplies and the latest communication equipment." Lyra rose, smoothing her diplomatic robes. "Any casualties reported in their sector?" "None. 3 attempted pirate raids, all intercepted before civilian contact." Pip consulted a data pad with practiced ease. "The Kravish have completely abandoned this region. Intelligence suggests they're operating 4 sectors away now, avoiding any area with human patrol partnerships." The statistics told a story the Council could no longer ignore. Human presence didn't just deter attacks. It fundamentally changed how predatory species operated. Word had spread through the darker corners of the galaxy. Attacking anyone under human protection meant facing Deathworlders who viewed such actions as personal offenses. Lyra walked to the colony's central plaza where the human supply ship had landed. Commander Blake descended the ramp, now promoted to regional coordinator for the expanding partnership program. His role had evolved from simple patrol work to organizing multi-species security initiatives. "Ambassador," Blake greeted her with a slight bow, a gesture he had learned from studying Chitauri customs. "We brought the medical equipment Dr. Tanaka recommended, also some seedlings from Earth. Yuki thought your botanists might enjoy studying them." Lyra accepted the offering with genuine warmth. Over months of interaction, she had learned to read human expressions, to understand their complex emotional displays. Blake's face showed the same gentle satisfaction he always expressed when delivering aid. "Your people continue to be remarkably generous." "Our people," Blake corrected gently. "That's the point of the partnership." He wasn't wrong. The relationship between humans and Chitauri had evolved beyond simple protection. Human engineers taught Chitauri technicians about robust system design learned from Earth's harsh conditions. Chitauri agricultural specialists showed humans cultivation techniques that worked in lower gravity. Both species benefited from the exchange. But the changes ran deeper than technology. In the plaza, Chitauri children played alongside human visitors without fear. Young Pip regularly video-called with Blake's daughter Sophia back on Earth, the 2 children sharing stories despite the vast distance between their worlds. Chitauri artists had begun incorporating human themes into their work, creating pieces that celebrated cooperation across species lines. The galaxy was watching. High Ambassador Seln arrived on New Haven later that week, conducting a formal evaluation of the partnership program. Her crystalline form sparkled in New Haven's sunlight as she toured the settlements, observing interactions between species. "Remarkable," she said to Lyra during a private meeting. "When we first encountered humans, many council members feared their Deathworlder nature. We worried they would become conquerors." "Instead, they became friends," Lyra replied. "More than friends, role models." Seln showed Lyra classified reports. 7 other Deathworlder species have emerged from isolation in recent months. They watched what humans accomplished and decided perhaps the galaxy could accept them too. Lyra read through the files with growing amazement. Species from high-gravity worlds, toxic atmospheres, radiation-soaked systems. All of them had hidden from galactic society, fearing rejection or exploitation. Humanity's example had given them hope. The Vorkin from the heavy gravity world Titans Gate requested diplomatic contact. Last week, Seln continued, they've been monitoring Council communications for decades but never reached out. They said humans proved that strength and compassion aren't contradictory. What will the Council do? Welcome them, learn from them. The galaxy is larger and stranger than we allowed ourselves to believe. Seln's crystalline structure flickered with what Lyra had learned to recognize as satisfaction. Humans forced us to confront our own prejudices. We built our civilization around species similar to ourselves and excluded those we deemed too different or dangerous. That evening, Lyra attended a ceremony in the central plaza. The Chitauri were honoring the human teams who had saved the Gentle Dawn, presenting them with traditional memory crystals that recorded the colony's gratitude for future generations. Blake accepted his crystal with visible emotion. On behalf of Earth Defense Force and all humanity, we accept this honor, but we want you to understand something important. He looked around at the assembled crowd, Chitauri and humans standing together. What we did wasn't heroic, it was basic decency, answering a distress call, protecting those in danger. These are things any species should do for another. Earth taught us that survival requires cooperation, that the pack protects its members. Blake held up the crystal so it caught the light. You called for help and we answered. That's not heroism. That's just being decent neighbors in a galaxy that's way too big for any of us to face alone. Pip stepped forward, speaking for the colonists. Then we hope to be good neighbors in return, to answer if you ever call, to protect others as you protected us. The gathering erupted in approval, the sound of two species committing to mutual support echoing across New Haven. Later, Lyra stood with Blake watching New Haven's twin suns set behind the mountains. The Council wants to expand the partnership program, she said. 12 more species have requested human patrol agreements. We'll need to train more crews, establish better coordination protocols. Blake smiled slightly. Going to be busy. Commander, why does this work? The partnership, I mean. Other species have tried cooperative security before. They always fail. Blake considered the question while colors painted the sky. Because we mean it. When humans promise protection, we don't calculate cost-benefit ratios or political advantages. We promise because it's right. Earth taught us that keeping promises matters more than convenience. He turned to face her directly. Your people trusted us when you had every reason to be terrified. We're not going to betray that trust, not ever. The distress call came from the edge of explored space, a region where Council authority existed more in theory than practice. Commander Blake was reviewing supply requests when the alert cut through every other priority. Automated beacon detected on frequency 779, his communications officer reported. Source unknown. Message reads simply, help us. Blake pulled up the coordinates. Deep frontier, beyond established patrol routes. Whatever species sent that message had found the old emergency frequencies through ancient records or desperate research. How many ships can we mobilize within jump range? Just us and the patrol vessel Unity. Everyone else is 6 hours out minimum. 2 ships to respond to an unknown emergency in unexplored space. Blake didn't hesitate. Signal the Unity, maximum speed to those coordinates, and contact Ambassador Lyra on New Haven. Tell her we might need her diplomatic expertise. 30 minutes later, the Steadfast and Unity dropped out of hyperspace into chaos. A small fleet of vessels clustered around a massive generation ship, the kind built by species attempting dangerous long-range colonization. The generation ship showed damage across multiple sections, hull breaches leaking atmosphere into the void. But what caught Blake's attention were the attacking ships. Automated war drones, their designs ancient but still deadly. Someone had programmed them to destroy any vessel entering this region, and the generation ship had stumbled into their kill zone. Scanning the generation ship, Tactical Officer Amara reported. Reading life signs, multiple species aboard, looks like a joint colony mission. Blake studied the tactical display. 15 war drones against 2 human vessels and 1 dying generation ship. The math wasn't in their favor. Open hailing frequencies to the generation ship. A face appeared on screen, reptilian features twisted with fear and exhaustion. This is Colony Master Wren of the generation ship Wanderer's Hope. We are a joint colony expedition carrying 7 species. Our defensive systems failed. These drones have been attacking for 16 hours. We are losing hull integrity. How many souls aboard? 12,000. Blake's mind raced through tactical options. The drones were old but sophisticated, their AI subroutines designed for space combat before the Council even existed. They wouldn't negotiate. They wouldn't retreat. They would simply continue attacking until their targets were destroyed or they themselves were eliminated. Amara, target priority on the drones closest to the generation ship. Dimitri, I need every spare power cell routed to weapons and shields. We're about to get very popular. The Unity's commander, Captain Rosa Delgado, appeared on secondary display. Commander, those drones use quantum targeting. They'll hit us before we even finish firing. Then we make them choose between targets. Split formation, maximum evasion protocols. Keep them focused on us while the Wanderer's Hope repairs their engines. What followed wasn't elegant combat. The human ships threw themselves between the drones and their prey, absorbing fire meant for the generation ship. Steadfast shields blazed with impacts as Blake's crew fought with the desperate creativity humans had refined over millennia of surviving impossible odds. Dimitri rerouted power in patterns that violated every safety regulation, pushing the ship's systems beyond their designed limits. Amara coordinated return fire with split-second timing, targeting drone weak points that she identified through pure pattern recognition. Dr. Tanaka prepared for casualties while simultaneously running diagnostic scans to help engineering identify critical damage. They were outnumbered 7-1. The drones had superior positioning and weapons designed specifically for void combat. Humans had something the drones' ancient programming had never encountered: absolute refusal to abandon those they protected. Direct hit on our port side, Dimitri reported calmly. Hull breach on deck 3, sealing now. Unity reports shield failure, communications added. They're taking heavy fire. Blake watched the tactical display, his mind processing angles and trajectories. The drones fought with mechanical precision, but precision could be predictable. All ships execute pattern theta on my mark. 3-2, mark. Both human vessels twisted through space in synchronized chaos, their movements seemingly random but carefully calculated to draw drone fire away from the generation ship. Several drones repositioned to compensate, exactly as Blake predicted. Amara, fire everything at Grid 7. The concentrated human firepower caught 3 drones in a kill zone, overwhelming their shields and destroying their targeting systems. The ancient machines tumbled through space, their threat ended. But 12 drones remained, and the Steadfast was bleeding atmosphere from multiple breaches. Then something unexpected happened. The Wanderer's Hope's engines came online. But instead of fleeing to safety, the massive generation ship moved forward, placing itself between the damaged Unity and the attacking drones. Its hull, built for endurance rather than combat, absorbed fire meant for the smaller human vessel. "What are they doing?" Amara demanded. Colony Master Wren's face reappeared, his reptilian features set with determination. "You put yourselves in danger to protect strangers. We will not abandon those who fight for us." The generation ship's point defense systems, designed for meteorite deflection, opened fire on the drones. The weapons were weak, intended for small debris rather than combat, but they provided enough distraction for human vessels to reposition. Blake felt something shift in his chest. The galaxy was learning. 20 minutes later, the last drone drifted through space as debris. Both human ships bore significant damage. The Wanderer's Hope had sustained additional hull breaches, but all 12,000 colonists survived. Colony Master Wren contacted Blake as damage control teams from all three vessels began coordinating repairs. "Commander, my people include species from 7 different worlds. We have been traveling together for 3 generations, seeking a place to build a joint colony where our children can grow up without the prejudices of our home worlds. You found some rough territory for that dream. Perhaps, but we also found proof that such dreams are possible." Wren gestured to something off-screen, and the display shifted to show the interior of the Wanderer's Hope. Multiple species worked together on repairs, their different biologies and skills complementing each other. "We heard stories about humans, about Deathworlders who chose protection over conquest. We needed to see if those stories were true." Blake looked at his own crew, humans working with calm efficiency despite injuries and exhaustion. "They're true, but you need to understand something. What we did today wasn't special because we're human. It was just the right thing to do. Any decent species would do the same." "No, Commander, any decent species should do the same. You actually do it." Later, as the human ships escorted the Wanderer's Hope toward Council space, Blake filed his report. The old distress frequency had worked again. Another group of strangers had become part of the pack. Ambassador Lyra reviewed his report from New Haven, then added her own notes for the Council. The partnership program needed expansion. More species needed training. The galaxy was bigger than anyone realized, filled with people seeking connection rather than conflict. The message ended with a simple observation that would echo through Council chambers. The galaxy shook when humans answered that first distress call. Now it's learning to answer alongside them.